Hello, friends. As you all know, that getting a Canadian PR has become much more difficult as compared to what it was earlier. And if you see the immigration level plan, 60% of all economic immigration would be through the federal program, basically through the express entry linked programs. So we will discuss that how you can maximize your chances of getting a PR in Canada, right? And before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Sandhu, and I'm a CICC regulated immigration consultant based out of Ontario, Canada. And this video is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or professional advice. And if you want one, you may book a consultation with a licensed immigration consultant or a lawyer. So let's dive right into it, right? If you look at the express entry programs, linked programs, right? First of all, express entry is not the name of the program, right? So the name of the programs are slightly different. We'll discuss that. But what is express entry? Express entry is a application management system, right? So they have a set of questions, right? When you create your profile, so you will answer certain questions related to your personal details, your education, your work experience, and so on and so forth. And based on that, so the express entry system would basically tell you whether you are eligible for the Canadian Experience Class or Federal Skilled Worker or Federal Skilled Trades Program, or maybe for multiple programs, right? And if you look at one of the most common program is either the Canadian Experience Class or Federal Skilled Worker Program. So let's say you are met the eligibility for at least one of them out of the three. Now what happens is that you are in the pool, right? So what does mean by pool? So every person who creates their profile and who is eligible is part of the pool. And now if I look into how many, so we are recording this video in November. So if I see how many people are in the pool, so let me just Google that and let you know how many people are in the pool right now. And you will automatically kind of understand that getting into the pool is not a big deal, right? And now, if you look into the pool status, and it tells you for each of the CRS score how many people are there. And if you look at the total number as of now, it's in November 2024, so it's 211,780. So being one of them is not a big deal, right? Now, after you are in the pool, there will be a draw, right? That's where the whole strategizing happens. So how can you be picked up? How can you be the one who will be picked up in that specific draw? For example, if you look into this, the last draw which happened on October 23 was a trade occupation draw. The score was 433, right? And if you look at the Canadian Experience Class draw, it was 539, right? So this means that if somebody had a experience in trade and they qualified under those category based occupation, right, category based selection, the score was much lower. So their chances of getting invited out of the 211,000 people who are in the pool is much, much higher, right? So let's go into that. What happens when you create your profile? Now you're in the pool. Then there are basically uh, three kind of invitations, three kind of way in which invitations happen, right? One of the invitation is a general round of invitations. So general round means that irrespective of what your experience is, as long as you qualify for one of the streams, so you will be ranked based on the score, right? The score is called as the CRS score. Now, if your score is very, very high, so you will be picked up, right? If your score is not that high, you will not be picked up. So the criteria is just based on the score. Then you have program specific round of invitations. So you must be meeting some requirement under the program. So for example, we discussed that there are three kind of programs, right? You have Canadian Experience Class, Federal Skilled Worker, Federal Skilled Trades. Let's say they only invite those who have qualified under the Canadian Experience Class. So then people who are in the Federal Skilled Worker program or Federal Skilled Trades program would not even qualify in that specific draw, right? So in that way, you will have a slightly better chances, right? And the third one is the most interesting. That's where you should be focusing on in any ways, right? So it's called category-based round of invitation. So this started in 2023 around June, where IRCC basically thought that, you know what, let's look into what is the shortfall in the next maybe long term, let's say 10 years, and let's invite people who have experience in those kind of skills which are in shortfall. So they created six categories, right, for 2023 and 2024. They can always change these categories for 2025, but as of now, these are the there are 6 categories. And now let's look into what are those categories, right? And if you look into at the screen, you see that there are 6 categories. So one of them is a language category, but all others are healthcare, science, technology, engineering, maths, trade, occupations, transport, agriculture, and agri-food, right? And now let's look into what is the requirement for each one of them as of now, right? If you look into the healthcare, right? In healthcare, you have approximately 35 entries, which means that 35 occupations are eligible. So if you have experience in these 35 occupations, you could be eligible for a category-based draw, right? And most of these occupations might be licensed, but some are not licensed as well. So it's very, very easy to get in. So, but what is the eligibility requirement as of now? It says you have accumulated within the past 3 years at least 6 months full-time continuous work experience, which means without breaks, or an equal amount of part-time work experience in a single occupation in Canada or abroad. So this 6 months can also be from outside Canada, right? So it doesn't have to be in Canada. But just remember that first you need to qualify for one of the programs. It could be federal skilled worker, it could be Canadian experience class. And then this thing has to apply to you, right? So this is only for picking up from the people from the pool. First, you have to be in the pool. In order to be in the pool, you need to be qualifying for one of the programs, which we kind of discussed earlier. So either of Canadian experience class, federal skilled worker, federal trades program. And then you have another one, which is, let's look into the other one. So you have STEM. So there are around 24 occupations in that. So these are related to engineering, architect, right? And land surveyors, and a couple of IT occupations, right? And then you have trade occupations. There are 10 of the trade occupations. Most of them may not require any kind of license, and which is a good thing, right? So this is how you can strategically plan that, you can always get into occupation which is not even related to your field of study. You can actually get into that because if that occupation is unlicensed, so there's no restriction per se. Then you have transport occupation. There are again 10 occupations in that, which is transport truck drivers, managers in transport, and many others. And then you have agriculture, in which there are 3 occupations, right? One of them is a butcher. So that is one occupation which is part of it. And then you have the most interesting one, which is French language. So it is not an occupation, but this category is based on the language, right? So if you have CLB 7 in all 4 language abilities, and you have given either of the 2 qualifying exams, which is TEF Canada or TCF Canada, so you could be eligible for French language proficiency draw, right? So this is how you can strategically. So remember, first, you create an express entry profile. You are eligible for one of the programs. Then a draw will happen. Now, how a draw will happen, we have discussed that. It could be a general draw, a program-specific draw, such as a Canadian experience class, or a category-based draw. Now, if you are under the category-based draw, the chances of you with getting picked up, getting invited to apply, right, are very high because the score is much lower, right? So this way is how you can basically think about, if you can gain experience of at least 6 months or more in one occupation which is in demand, so you would be part of that category-based selection, and your chances of getting invited increases much more. There's another thing which I want to kind of mention here is that if you look into these categories, right? So they mentioned what are the priorities are. So if you look at what are the priorities are, immigration for 2024 mentioned healthcare, trade, and French. They specifically did not mention actually STEM occupations, or they did not mention transport or agriculture. Maybe they're going to sprinkle a few of them, but as of now, it seems that the focus is more on French, healthcare, and trade. So if you can gain experience in these occupations, you will have a better chance. Now, just to bring the thing home for you, now let's look into the program specific draw, right? Let's look at the general draw first of all. If you see general draw, so you see the scores are pretty high: 529, 549, 524. So these draws happen on different dates. And after April 23rd, 2024, there is not a single general draw have happened. So they have been inviting either the Canadian experience class. If you look at the Canadian experience class, the scores were 539, but this is like recent draws for they only picked up 400 to 500 people, right? And but the previous ones were at 509, 507. So it is this score is obviously much lesser as compared to a general draw, right? And then let's look into the category based draw. Let's say if I look into all the French draw, right? And if you see here, the scores are very, very low. 444, 446, 394, 400, 420, very, very less score. And if you look at the healthcare, right? Similarly, 445, they're pretty much like the last three draws happened at less than 450 score. And to get a score of 500 is very difficult, and to get a score of less than like close to 450 is much, much easier. So now you can see that if you get an experience in healthcare trade, or that would be your golden ticket to getting a PR in Canada, right? And similarly, you can look at the other ones like trades one as well. And if you see trades ones, so that is again, you have 433, 436 draw, which happened on July 4th, and so on and so forth. So this is what I wanted to emphasize, that if you want to get your Canadian PR, you cannot ignore the express entry linked programs, because the PNP as such has been drastically cut. If you see last year, the PNP quota was for 2025, they were planning was 110 or 120,000. And this and for 2025 now it has been reduced to half of it what it was in 2024. So 2024 quota for this year was 110,000 people, and now it is only 55 for the next year. So this is actually a bad news for provincial nominee programs, but it's a really good news for people who are inside Canada or who can get into some kind of a category or both, right? So it's amazingly good if you are a student in Canada, if you have work experience in Canada, if you can figure out strategically, and you will have benefit. And I can also tell you which knock codes and which kind of job occupations you could benefit a lot if you think about them strategically, which has a low entry barriers. And if you can get into those occupations, you will have a better chance of getting Canadian PR. So yeah, so before I end, I just want to request that make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with anyone who might benefit from this specific video. And I have also created a lot of playlists where you can go and learn more about different PR pathways, different programs. And if you want any specific program to be discussed, do let me know, and I will be happy to create a video on that and share with you. So wish you all the very best.